A call to arms against Newt Gingrich, and not from Mitt Romney's camp either. Republican Senator Rand Paul out of Kentucky, a Tea Party favorite in the Senate, writing this in an op-ed piece, quote, "We have a choice to make in a few weeks. If the Tea Party is to continue the work we resolved in 2010 to undertake, then we must not make a giant leap backward by electing big government status quo Republicans like Newt Gingrich in 2012. Strong words from my guest now, Rand Paul, live out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. He's a member of Ron Paul's presidential campaign, and you're his biggest supporter because you're his son. Good morning to you, Senator, and welcome back to our program here. What's wrong with Newt Gingrich?
Well, you know, the Tea Party got started because we were unhappy with a lot of Republicans who supported the bank bailouts. In fact, I think that's primarily that and the debt that we were concerned with, but primarily we were concerned that Republicans voted for this bank bailout, and Newt Gingrich was right there with them, being paid for by the government banks, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, to the tune of millions of dollars, and then supporting the bank bailouts, which I think just goes against everything that the Tea Party stands for.
Well, I read your op-ed piece. Do you like Mitt Romney?
Well, I think Mitt Romney is who he is. I think he's a moderate Republican from the Northeast, and I think if he were to be nominated, people wouldn't expect him to be a real conservative champion, and that'd be okay. But what I'm afraid of is that the Tea Party movement and the conservative wing of the Republican Party could be destroyed by nominating someone like Newt Gingrich, who in the end really isn't a conservative.
Well, what I took away from your piece is that you weren't really hot on either one of the front runners right now. And according to our polling, Gingrich is first and Romney second. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Bill, I am a little biased towards that Ron Paul guy, and you have to give me that. But I also am a member of the Tea Party movement, and I think that I want somebody who's consistent with that movement. Cap and trade's been a big issue. Newt Gingrich has been in favor of that. Obamacare, the linchpin of Obamacare is the individual mandate, and Newt Gingrich was for that also. So there are some questions. I think he's now risen to the top of the polls, but people need to ask some tough questions about the fact that he's been on both sides of a lot of issues.
I think you can expect those questions to come. What Gingrich would tell you is that, you know, he's not been perfect over the years and that he has changed because he's evolved over time. Do you accept that?
Well, about a year ago, we had an election in upstate New York where there was a conservative, Doug Hoffman, running. Newt Gingrich came in and supported the liberal Republican. When the whole conservative radio talk show hosts, everybody in the conservative world supported the conservative, Newt Gingrich supported the liberal Republican. The bailouts is fairly recent history. Him sitting with Nancy Pelosi in support of cap and trade legislation, fairly recent. His being in favor of Obama's education, traveling the country with Al Sharpton in support of a federal takeover of education. Those are all in the last few years. Those aren't ancient history. That's actually more recent history.
Well, we all look forward to the explanation on that. I have two more questions to get to quickly. With the Tea Party in 2012, what is the status of the organization? Do you sense that they are still together, that they were growing, or have they ebbed in terms of attention and support?
Well, the Tea Party has been a funny organization because it's never really ever been an organization. It really has been from the bottom up and has been a grassroots group. To me, a lot of times the Tea Party movement was open mic night. Everybody got to show up. And a lot of the reason it was popular was if you go to a Republican meeting or a Democrat meeting, nobody cares about your opinion. But if you go to a Tea Party movement, everybody's equal, everybody gets a chance at the microphone, and everybody gets to participate in this sort of direct democracy. And so I think that's what was popular about the Tea Party movement, but it also is a flaw in the sense that we're sometimes not as organized as we could be.
We'll see how that plays out in 2012. What about your father? There's a piece today in Politico that suggests he's getting ready for a long run, a long slog, that it's only Ron Paul, your dad, and Mitt Romney that have braced themselves for the long haul. What do you think about that?
Well, the interesting thing my father has is he has an enormous amount of independent support. If you match him against President Obama, he does as well or better than any other Republican candidate because he draws a lot of independent vote. He also has a lot of small dollar support. He has 500,000 Facebook friends, an enormous email list, people who give $20 at a time. His average donation is really coming from middle America and small donations, not from, you know, they had a list of billionaires who have given money. 0 billionaires on Ron Paul's list, but a lot of $20 contributors.
Rand Paul, thank you for your time. It's sure going to be a very interesting year, and it's all going to kick off in 24, 25 days. Nice to see you, Senator, out of Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Thanks, Bill.
Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship. 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 Kingship.
I am for globalization. I am for globalization. I am for globalization.
Presidents are important. They are, in effect, an elected kingship.